Here's what I often joke, right? Add value. I often joke that it's my third book. My first was Ignite Your Potential. My second, I did it on stage, and the book's called Overthinking. Overthinking kills everything. The end. That's the book, right? So that's it. It's done. I don't need to go to print. It's an audio book only, right?
It would be ironic to go to print.
And I know this is a subject you talked to a bit again. What do you find to be some of those underpinning reasons? I know what my take on that, but what do you think are some of these underpinning reasons and causes that make people overthink stuff that actually prevents them moving forward or making those decisions or being connected? What do you find that to be?
A lot of overthinking is often linked to anxiety. So people who are just you just set up as a warrior, someone who thinks of all the consequences and what could go wrong and what could happen. So there's probably a personality type linked to overthinking, and it's also called catastrophizing. But in terms of the underpinning causes, I think it's so complex. It's got to do with our genes, it's got to do with our early environment, it's got to do with who we are as people. I think so I started overthinking. My first recollection of consciously overthinking was in kindergarten. And they said, I went to a Catholic school, and they said, we're going to say a prayer for all the people in year 12 who are doing the HSC today. And here I am. What's the HSC? And they said, oh, it's a big exam where you get tested on everything you've ever learned at school. That was the wrong answer. That was the wrong answer to give someone like me. So then I go into overdrive, trying to remember what color I colored the fish, the thing that we had to stuff, and then we had to do staples. And I feel like going back to me at that point and go, it's all right.
Yeah.
It's not everything. You don't have to remember every single thing you ever learned at school. It's October of kindy. You don't have to remember what you did in January. And I immediately went to that. So I don't know you can't sort of say, oh, that person will be an overthinker, because you can get.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's different. Yeah. I love how you say overthinking, catastrophizing.
Yes.
Meditation is catharticizing then. It's cathartic. Right? I love that kind of. And I do love, like you said, that with your dad coming from that Jungian type background, Myers-Briggs, I know they taught to this concept in the Myers-Briggs tool kit about people slipping into the grip of their inferior complex, which is where they're using their least developed brain sense. And I buy that completely, because for my type and who I am, and maybe this will resonate with you.
Yes.
If I've got some scenario going on that's really stressing me out, my reaction might be to keep thinking about it and looking at it from 100 million different ways, the same thing. But what does this mean? But what does this mean? But how does it from here? Like, I just can't fucking get off it, right? So that's what an overthinking might be triggered based on a scenario, as you're saying. It's very different scenarios, but once we click there, for me, because thinking, I don't normally overthink. I more intuitively feel. Therefore, when I get caught into a drama or a crisis, I might have a tendency to slip into that overthinking. That's pretty much how they define it. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. I definitely think that it's about the thought spirals. So I think if you think about thoughts as having a spiral, people who don't overthink, they will get on the spiral and they'll go, woo, woo, okay, hopping off. Someone who overthinks will go, woo, 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 and just stay on. And then there's the problem with it, the reason it becomes problematic is that we have behaviors then that we tie to the overthinking. So you get on, it's almost like getting on a roller coaster. And so then you might go, oh, when I overthink, I eat, or when I overthink, I drink, or I call this person and keep talking about it, or I dramatize, or I have an argument with my partner, because there's then now behaviors. And that's why it's sort of a bit addictive. And so in my book, when I talked about how to stop overthinking, I sort of said, whatever you're doing now, do the opposite.
Yeah.
I was the person who was an overthinker, and then I'd call someone and then make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And I wanted to talk to someone else about my overthinking. And so now I mean, my least developed sense is the sense I need to get into my body. So if something is happening, if I start overthinking, the best thing for me to do is to get physical.
Yeah.
And almost like release it that way. So again, everyone has to just be true to their own nature.